chair, folks. Tonight we're walking back into the brand new Grand Ole Opry House in Nashville, October 14th, 1974. Johnny Cash is hosting, the house is packed, and the 8th annual CMA Awards are humming like a Telecaster through a good tube amp, Female Vocalist of the Year. Now that's a heavyweight crown in 74. The nominees read like the backbone of country radio: Loretta, Lynn, Dolly, Parton, Tanya, Tucker, Anne Murray, and one name a lot of people still weren't ready to call country: Olivia Newton-John. She'd already slipped through the side door with Let Me Be There in 73. That thing hit pop, AC, and the country chart, and it earned her a country Grammy. Then 1974 turned the dial even louder. If You Love Me, Let Me Know put her album on top of the country albums chart for weeks, and I Honestly Love You was ruling pop. In other words, by the time we get to awards night, Olivia's voice is everywhere. Jukeboxes in Murfreesboro, mall speakers in Peoria, and yes, country stations from Tulsa to Tallahassee. Back to Nashville, two elder statesmen step to the mic, Roy Acuff and Chet Atkins. The envelope opens, and the name read out, Female Vocalist of the Year, is Olivia Newton-John. Now here's where the air changes. The applause is there, sure, but there's a murmur too, the sound of a room taking sides in real time. Not over her talent. Nobody argued she couldn't sing. The fight was over the borders. What's country when the arrangements gleam, when the records are cut in L.A. and London, when the singer's an Aussie Brit whose biggest smash that month is sitting atop the pop chart? The morning after, the debate spills out of the Opry House and onto the pages of the trades, the call-in lines, and the coffee counters at WSM listening diners. Traditional artists, good, hard-working road dogs, felt like the ground under their boots had shifted. Some DJs and label folks had been leaning pop-ward for a while, and this win felt to many like a rubber stamp on that drift. Within weeks, the pushback gets organized. A group of performers and industry hands, staunch traditionalists, form the Association of Country Entertainers, the ACE. One of the loudest champions is Opry stalwart Gene Shepard, who later serves as its president. Their mission is simple and sharp: defend country's identity, speak up when the industry's tastemakers seem to forget the steel, the fiddle, and the twang. Depending on who you ask, ACE came together in the immediate wake of Olivia's trophy, and it carried even more fuel a year later when John Denver won Entertainer of the Year. Either way, that 1974 Female Vocalist card is one of the sparks. Meanwhile, on the charts, Olivia's still doing what the award said she did. Sing, If You Love Me, Let Me Know keeps its footing on country playlists. The album bearing its name sits atop the country albums chart for a healthy run, and country radio, always a little more diverse under the hood than its gatekeepers admit, keeps threading her in between Cal Smith and Merle Haggard. Country fans in the suburbs hear her next to Ronnie Millsap and Anne Murray. Fans closer to Lower Broad grumble and change the dial, or don't, depending on the hook. Now folks, here's the tricky bit. What do awards mean in a format that's always been tugged between barn dance and big city? Country's been arguing its borders since before the Opry left the Ryman for the Opry House in 74. Nashville had Countrypolitan, smoothing rough edges. The Outlaws were about to kick the saloon doors off, and the industry itself was learning to love crossover, so long as the records sold. Olivia's win didn't invent that tension, it just put a bright spotlight on it. There are stories from the time, little barbs and jokes that stung. Minnie Pearl, with that hat-pin humor, was quoted taking a swipe at Olivia's Nashville savvy. Letters rolled into magazines warning that if foreign pop could win country's biggest female title, nothing was sacred. On the other side, some heavyweights shrugged and said, if she moves people, let the chart speak. A few even argued that bringing new ears to country wasn't the worst thing a singer could do. And here's the human part, y'all. Awards nights can be cruel to winners. Olivia didn't campaign to be a symbol. She'd cut songs that touched people, voters in the business. CMA's membership rang the bell for her. Overnight, she went from surprise winner to the center of a cultural squall. By most accounts, she handled it with grace, kept making music, and before long she was cutting sides in Nashville again. She stayed a welcome guest on country radio through the mid-70s with Please Mr. Please and the Have You Never Been Mellow era, even as her star aimed more toward pop. So what's the legacy of that October night? First, it proved the CMA electorate could and would reward a voice that didn't fit a tidy box. Second, it galvanized a guardrail movement, ACE, that said, not so fast, and forced the town to argue its own identity out loud. And third, it foretold the long, looping conversation country would keep having, through Urban Cowboy, through Shania, through anyone who dared set a steel guitar next to a string section and call it country. Half a century later, you can still feel that tremor. Every time a crossover act wins a Nashville trophy, somebody brings up Olivia Newton-John and that envelope at the Opry House in 1974. Maybe that's the truest measure of a debated award, not whether it was right or wrong, but whether it made the format look in the mirror and say, who are we and who gets to sing our stories? However you land, that night's part of the tapestry now. A pop-leaning singer with a country streak was called Female Vocalist of the Year, and the room learned something about itself, how wide the tent could stretch, and how loud the stakes can sound when heart and heritage share the same stage.